What happens after we die? Before we really know what happens to a person when he dies, it's essential to know that a person actually is composed of three parts. And what are these three parts? And what happens to each individual part when we die? Well, that's where we begin. The answer to that first question is recorded here in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5:23, wherein it says this: "Now may the God of peace himself sanctify you completely, and may your whole spirit, soul, and body be preserved blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ." We each have three parts: body, spirit, and soul. So what happens to the spirit after death? What happens to the soul when a person dies? Well, if we go to Ezekiel, a prophet wherein he wrote the following in Ezekiel, it's recorded in chapter 18, verse 4. "Behold, all souls are mine. The soul of the Father, as well as the soul of the Son, is mine. The soul who sins shall die." The Bible mentions here what will happen to the soul. Clearly, it dies. No matter what other religious organizations will tell you what will happen to the soul immediately after a person dies, the Bible's answer is definitive. The soul dies. Wait, whose soul dies? Well, the one mentioned here is the soul of the sinner. The soul of the sinner dies. Well, who's the sinner? In the Bible, we've read in many of our lessons in the past, Romans 5:12 makes it very clear that all people commit sin. Nobody could stand up and say, "Well, I'm perfect and never committed sin." No, it was only Jesus that was without sin. All people sin, therefore, all people's souls die. What happens to the spirit and body when a person dies? What about these two components? First, let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 12, and let's take a look here, together, in verse 7. What happens to the body? What happens to the spirit? In verse 7 it says, "Then the dust will return to the earth as it was, and the spirit will return to God who gave it." The Bible's very clear. The spirit returns to God, and the body returns to the dust from where it came. And, as we read previously, the soul dies. So, that's what happens to the three parts. What about my thoughts? Will I no longer have thoughts? Is there something that a person who has already died and has been buried already, is there something that they could benefit from? Or is there something that they could participate in that is still being done here on earth by those who are alive? Can they still have contact? Should they still expect to be communicating with the living? What happens to your thoughts when you die? So let's continue here in Ecclesiastes. We turn to chapter 9, and let's read verse 5 and verse 6, where the Bible gives the clear answer. "For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing, and they have no more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Also their love, their hatred, and their envy have now perished. Never more will they have a share in anything done under the sun." The Bible is, once again, so very clear. They will never have a part in anything that is done under the sun. Any novenas or masses that are said for them, they have no part in that. The Bible is very clear. Any communication with them, they have no part. That's not it. People have all these different kinds of ceremonies for the dead and rituals for the dead. But the Bible is clear. The Bible does not instruct for those things to be done. Why not? Because those who have died have no more share or no more part in anything that is done under the sun.